The 14th of August 2005. Athens, the capital of Greece. At 0:03 a.m., a strange and terrifying guest was circling the sky. Around 10,000 meters above the ground, a passenger plane was silently flying, without responding to anyone. The terrifying part was that for the last 2 hours, this plane had not replied to any control tower messages. Fear spread in the skies of Athens. Was this a terrorist attack in the making, or a hijacking event? Because of this fear, the Greek Air Force immediately sent fighter jets after it. When the fighter jets got close, they saw a shocking scene inside the plane. The entire cabin was silent, no movement, no sound. All passengers sat lifeless in their seats, and even the cockpit was empty. During this time, the F-16 pilots saw a man inside the cockpit who did not appear to be a pilot. He was moving around as if he was searching for something or trying to understand what was happening. Suddenly, the plane tilted and started descending rapidly toward the ground. Within minutes, it crashed into mountains north of Athens. All 121 passengers and crew members died. But what had happened? Why was there no movement inside? Why were the pilots silent? What happened after takeoff that caused such a terrifying disaster? This is the story of Helios Flight 522, also known as the Ghost Plane. The flight and the crew on the morning of the 14th of August 2005. A total of 115 passengers and 6 crew members boarded Helios Airways Flight 522 at Larnaca Airport in Cyprus. The aircraft was scheduled to travel to Prague, with a planned stop in Athens. Most travelers were holidaymakers heading toward Athens. The captain, a 59-year-old veteran with over 17,000 flight hours, was highly experienced. The first officer, aged 51, had logged around 7,500 hours. Yet, beneath this strong resume, there was a concern. The first officer had a documented struggle with checklist procedures and had previously complained about the captain's strict and pressuring behavior. The airline was already aware of these internal tensions. Takeoff and the first warning, the aircraft, a Boeing 737-300, 7 years old, took off smoothly from land. At around 10,000 feet, the pilots contacted Nicosia Air Traffic Control and requested a climb to 34,000 feet, which was approved. But shortly after passing 12,000 feet, an alarm suddenly echoed through the cockpit. It was the takeoff configuration warning, a sound meant to alert pilots on the ground if the aircraft is not properly configured for takeoff. Hearing it, midair left both pilots puzzled. About 90 seconds later, the captain contacted Helios Operations to report the warning. He also noted that the ventilation cooling fan lights were off and asked about their circuit breakers. The engineer responded that those lights were normally off, and the breaker was located behind the captain's seat. Then the engineer remembered something critical. The night before, during a pressurization leak test, he had switched the pressurization mode from auto to manual and never returned it to auto. He asked the captain directly whether the pressurization switch was set to auto or manual, but the captain did not answer and instead repeated his earlier question about the circuit breakers. By now, oxygen masks had already deployed inside the cabin. Shortly afterward, all communication with the aircraft ceased. Attempts to contact the aircraft, although the plane climbed to 34,000 feet, but TC could no longer reach it. Multiple calls were made, no reply. Nearby aircraft also tried contacting it again. Silence. The aircraft drifted into Greek airspace without clearance, continuing on autopilot exactly along its programmed route. At 7:37 a.m., the jet began circling Athens airport in a holding pattern, as though waiting for landing clearance yet. The crew never requested one. After the 6th loop, Greek authorities deployed to F-16 fighter jets to intercept it. A ghost in the sky at 8:30 a.m., one F-16 pilot reported a chilling sight. The captain's chair was empty. Passengers sat motionless, oxygen masks hanging from their faces. The entire cabin appeared lifeless. During the aircraft's 10th loop, the fighter pilot saw a man wearing a light blue shirt and black vest enter the cockpit and sit in the captain's seat. He put on the headphones, rested his hands on the controls, and even signaled back to the fighter jet. Moments later, the left engine shut down. The aircraft banked sharply to the left and began descending. By 9 a.m., the right engine also flamed out. 4 minutes later, the plane crashed into the mountains northwest of Athens, leaving no survivors. The investigators questioned the engineer who had last worked on the aircraft. He admitted that during the leak test, he had left the pressurization mode in manual instead of resetting it to auto. At 34,000 feet with the system still on manual, cabin pressure kept dropping. This triggered hypoxia-oxygen deprivation, which causes confusion, impaired judgment, and eventually unconsciousness. The crew missed 3 different opportunities to notice the incorrect switch position: before taxi, before takeoff, after takeoff. But hypoxia had already begun affecting their decision. At 12,000 feet, the cabin altitude warning sounded, but the pilots mistook it for the takeoff configuration alert. Instead of focusing on pressurization, they tried troubleshooting a non-existent takeoff issue. Soon, both pilots lost consciousness. Passenger oxygen lasted only about 10 minutes, after which everyone else also became unresponsive. Who was the man in the cockpit? Officials identified him as Andreas, a flight attendant who held a commercial pilot license, but was not certified to fly a Boeing 737. The cockpit voice recorder revealed that he attempted to make a mayday call. But due to confusion and stress worsened by hypoxia, he forgot to press the transmit switch. He tried to take control of the aircraft, but by that time, the engines were failing from fuel exhaustion. Even if he had miraculously landed the plane, the passengers' prolonged lack of oxygen meant irreversible brain damage. Findings and industry reforms. 3 out of the 4 portable oxygen bottles found in the wreckage had been used indicating. Prodramou and at least 2 other crew members stayed conscious longer than the others. Following this tragedy, aviation authorities overhauled procedures, enhanced pilot training, and redesigned warning systems to avoid confusion between similar alerts. Since these reforms, no accident similar to Helios Flight 522 has ever occurred again.